Hi, my name's Keith Cooper. In this video I'm going to have a quick look at a new lens from Laowa. It's a 19mm prime lens, wide angle lens, f2.8, and this one comes in the Fuji G mount, so I've got it here on Fuji GFX 100S. Now I happen to be testing the 100S with some Fuji lenses here, and I will be doing some more videos and things like that. Mentioned this to Laowa and they said, we've got a new 19mm lens coming out, would you like to have a look at it? Well, yes, this is it. So I've put this together, and there's also a written review which I'll put a link to in the notes, which covers more detail, has more example photos and things on it. And I would say that if you're looking at this video sometime after the review first came out, which is December 2022, have a look at the written review, because I will be updating that over time. I'll be adding some more images and various things. But I just wanted to get it ready for Laowa announcing the lens. But there's the lens. Comes in a nice box, as we expect from it. It's one of Laowa's 0D range, so it's zero distortion. Has it got zero distortion? Well, no lens has got zero distortion, but geometrically there is very little distortion on this. There's very little chromatic aberration. It's just a very nice quality lens. But it's, if I just take the cap off here, you do get a lens hood with it, but at 19mm with 110-degree field of view, roughly equivalent to a 14mm on 35mm camera, it's not going to protect the lens from sunlight from anywhere near in the picture. So yes, it's useful, it's worthwhile keeping it on the front. The lens doesn't protrude at all anyway, so you can fit filters on this, so that's not a problem. 77mm screw fit filters it takes. Although wide angle, make sure you get good quality ones, because any distortions in the glass or lack of quality in the glass is amplified when you use filters with wide lenses, because the light is having to travel through the glass at quite a narrow angle, and that any sort of defects in the filter are shown up by that. But as I say, 77mm screw fit, nice fit glass there. Now, an example, I said it's f2.8. 2.8 is quite wide for lenses like this. Quite often they come f4. We have fairly small apertures these days, but 2.8 gives you a nice bit of depth of field if you really want it and you focus close enough. Now at 19mm, you're not going to be using this for, normal photos with lots of out of focus areas and everything. It's quite tricky to do. You have to focus close. That is a quick example of it. This is a shot on top of a roof when I was out the other day testing, and there's some frost here on a table, and it's just starting to melt as the sun's coming up. Now I've taken that shot. That's taken at f8. Gives you a feel for the field of view of the lens. I've then taken a shot in detail of some of the frost. Now, this is the same place. I've set the lens to its closest focused, and I've just moved it about and got some of this area frost sharp. But it's really just to show you the quality of the outer focus areas, which when it's wide open are not that bad. Now, the lens itself is a completely 100% manual lens. It has no electronics in it. That means at the lens mount end, and it's Fuji G mount here for the medium format, there are no electrical contacts. Now that means that you have to set the camera to allow for taking photos with no lens attached, because as far as this camera is concerned, there is no lens attached. Now I need to have a look a bit more. This is, say, a camera I've got borrowed from Fuji to have a look at. I'm looking at some of their tilt shift lenses next year, but I've wanted to get familiar with the camera. One of the things about it is there are probably settings in here that may make it easier to use a lens like this. I've still not explored the camera fully. It takes you a while to pick up all the subtleties of using a camera. However, I have found I've used it in manual focus mode with focus peaking. Really makes a difference. It's very easy to focus the lens, particularly if you do it at a slightly wider aperture and then stop down to take the picture, just like I used to on cameras in the 70s when I first took up photography. you will forget to do it, but it's much easier not to forget to do it because you've got a live view in the viewfinder here. And it works fine with that. So I've been using that for testing. Now, focus scale of the lens itself, it goes up to f22. It has about a 90-degree throw on it, so not a lot. It does have, although I hadn't figured out exactly how to do it, an adjustment for the hard stop at infinity. So if you want to adjust the infinity point to make sure that when you've turned the lens fully around, it really is focused properly at infinity, useful at night photographing stars and the likes if you can accurately focus, because autofocus does not like taking photos of stars in general, but you can adjust that. But I haven't actually fiddled with the lens on that. It's not my lens, so I don't really want to start tweaking it and doing things like that. But it works really well. The scale, the f-stops on it are whole stops. There's no part stops on it, so it's soft clicks. I haven't tested this for video anyway whatsoever. I just don't do video really, other than these fairly simple videos here for YouTube. I don't do it professionally. I'm an architectural commercial photographer. So we've got a nice solid, nice smooth flow. There's no jerkiness in it. It's a work well. Now, obviously this is just one lens, and I always say that if you look at a lens review and people start making too sweepingly broad statements about a lens, take it under advisement if they're talking about technical details, because there is variation in lenses and you never know what copy you've got. Now I've got a sample copy here, pre-release sample copy, so I'm going to assume it's quite a good one. It certainly works very well. But yeah, nice picture. For close focus, that picture of the ice. Here's an example taken here with the lens set to its closest focus distance. So the picture is showing on the screen on the back, shows you these tiny little cars just in front of the lens. It focuses that close. I think it's about a 0.18 multiplication ratio. So it's not by any means a macro lens, but it does focus pretty close. 18 centimeters, I think, is the minimum focus distance on it. But you can see quite clear, very wide angle. There's the shot of, there's what the actual camera is taken. Works very well for that. And of course, if you took it at f2.8, you might just be able to use a bit of out of focus effects as well. Your depth of field's not going to be that great though. Typical shots. I'm an architectural photographer. This is some collection of stairways at De Montfort University, placed near here. If you've seen any of my many articles, reviews on tilt shift lenses and lens testing in general, it's not far from here, and it's somewhere I always go for lens testing. Helps to have somewhere that looks interesting rather than just brick walls. I can see virtually no distortion in that at all. There's nothing obviously that says to me, the lens needs a bit of correction or something like that. Now, it's very difficult to actually see distortion in things like this. You need to take pictures of brick walls and other fascinating subjects like that. Now, I've got some pictures in the written review which go through stepping through the aperture, looking at different settings and things like that, if you're curious in that and the detail. But that's the sort of pictures I was taking. There's another one taken looking down on the stairs. These stairs cover on several floors and they all intercross over each other. It's always finding sort of interesting angles with a wide lens to take pictures of. Now, I said taking pictures of walls and things. This is one of the pictures taken outside that I did just to check what the lens is like at different apertures. Now, this was probably, I think this is 5.6, oh no, this is this is f5.6. We've got some vignetting on it, and the lens does show quite a bit of vignetting at 2.8. It drops gradually as you step down, but it's still there to some extent even at f16. The corners are just that little bit darker. Now, I don't particularly mind that. It can be corrected anyway if you want, but I was looking to see how the lens performed in terms of capturing detail. In the centre here, it peaks around about, let's say 5.6, maybe a little less, 5.6 for detail there. Off in the edges here, it's more like f8. maybe pushing f11 in the very corners of that. But you don't want to go much beyond that, because if you look in the center here, you can see that sharpness rises as you go. 2.8 is a bit softer, 4 is a bit sharper, 5.6 maybe a little bit sharper than that, 8 a little less sharp, and then it drops off. You are seeing the effects of diffraction come in. But don't beat yourself up too much about diffraction. It's never the problem that I think many people claim it to be. If I need f22 for depth of field, I'll use f22. I've used f32 as well on things. Sometimes you accept a little bit of softness creeping in through diffraction because of the much greater depth of field you get. It's about understanding the playoff between all of these that helps you pick your optimal settings. Anyone that comes up to you and says, oh, yeah, that lens is diffraction limited at f5.1 or something like that, well, they've been reading various tables and things a little bit too carefully, because first of all, f5.1, whoever thinks about setting something to that degree of accuracy, and yeah, it's a surefire indicator that they don't really understand the effects of diffraction on images. Yeah, there are effects. Use them to your advantage, use them as you would any other factor of lenses and that. But I would say, it is something that does irk me a bit when I get people going, oh no, you can't use that lens because it's diffraction limited at such and such. Well, mostly complete nonsense. Not entirely, but mostly complete nonsense. But that was looking at that image there. Now, another image I've taken looking on the nearby canal. Some people out doing some early morning rowing practice, and the lens itself works well looking into the sun. I've seen if there are quite pronounced spikes you'll get, and the spikes come from the fact that there's a basic 5-blade aperture for the aperture setting in this. The aperture setting on this gives very pronounced sun stars. If I show another shot of that, we've got one there for the sunshine thing. Now, with this, it also showed there's very little flare. There's a little bit of veiling. There's a couple of rings around. If you look carefully at the image, you can see stuff, but it's not a problem. There's not lights all over the place and things. It's a fairly clean lens in that respect. But when you're looking at stuff like this, that's sun stars. Now, they come from the 5-bladed aperture of this. That's with the, I can tell it's a 5-blade aperture because it has a blue ring on it. Laowa also do, and at the moment not this particular lens as far as I know, they also do ones with, I think it's a 13-blade aperture. Now it's a more rounded aperture. You don't get the very prominent star spikes like this. Is that a problem? Well, it depends. These can look great sometimes, but other times they can get in the way. So it's really a matter of taste and your style of photography and what you use things. Obviously, this time of year, Christmas lights everywhere, little stars all over the place. Great, works great, but you may not always want that. So that's what kind of image does it take? One thing I should mention, which I do refer to in the written review a bit, is that I also have, and I'll be doing some more about this, the Fuji 20 to 35mm zoom. Now this, whereas this one feels heavy for the size of it, this feels lighter than I expect it to be, given it's a very big lens. Now this one, f4, so I've got 20mm at f4 on this versus 19mm at f2.8 on this one. Now, the difference in focal length are negligible, makes no real difference. They're both effectively ultra-wide lenses looked at on this particular camera. When I looked at some of the shots I took here, I also took shots on the this one here at 20mm. And the first time I processed the shots, I was astounded by how great the pictures were that came out of this. They were absolutely dead flat. There was virtually no vignetting. They just looked absolutely superb. And I thought, well, what's going on here? And I looked at the JPEGs. JPEGs looked good as well. Turns out, once I double checked it and turned it off in my raw file processing, that there is a massive amount of correction going on for the JPEGs to correct for the lens. Once I turned off the correction, as I could in the RAW processing when I was doing it using Photoshop, using Camera Raw in this instance, turned off the processing for this, and there is barrel distortion like a fairly cheap kit zoom. It's not quite that bad. So what you have is you have a lens. Now this one will be around about £1,000, just like 900 to £1,000 when it's available. This one is 2,300, 2,400. So we have a big difference. Now, obviously this one, autofocus works. It has all kinds of stuff. It doesn't have stabilization, but it's a very good lens. But remember that a significant chunk of that very good lens, from the image point of view, quality point of view, comes from the fact that it's being fixed in post-production. Now, you may be bothered by that, you may not be bothered by it. My only slight complaint is that this one fixes the vignetting 100%, so it looks like a lens with no vignetting. I quite like leaving a bit of vignetting in. Now I can do that with RAW files from Camera Raw. Once somebody brings out profiles for this lens as well, you'll be able to apply them. You'll need to apply them manually though, because as I say, it's a fully manual lens. So there you have a lens at, I believe, $999 is the price listed for it when it's being launched, and here we have one at vastly more, 2,600 or so. What would you use? Depends about your photography, what you want. It is an interesting lens. It's a very nice lens to use, and obviously it's such a short focal length. The fact that it's fully manual really doesn't make so much difference. It's much easier to focus lenses like this than it is longer lenses and manual lenses. Now, I've got lots of stuff looking at adapted lenses and things like that, and I will be looking more at this in the coming year. But there you go. This is a brand new lens. Have a look at the written review as well, because I will be updating that and adding far more images and samples and things like that as time goes by. So the videos are stuck. This is as is, so I can't sort of redo it and add new pictures and stuff in. So you get what you get. But a very nice lens. Would I use one like this if I had this camera? I might well do. Please do ask questions if you've got any. I've got this kit here for a while yet. Likewise, in general, for the YouTube channel, if you've got questions, so put the questions on the comments or email me at Northlight. It's people's comments and questions which often give me idea for new videos and things to support what I've done. So there you go, and I hope you found that interesting. Thanks. Oh, and please do subscribe to the channel. Cheers.